County Tourism makes the money from it, but the property owner doesn't, and that brings
There's another story like that. The lady had one of the sites that they were going around to show people, and she let them come in. She told them some things, and then when they were finished, the tour guide said, "Would you guys like to care to donate to this lady for her time of showing us around and telling us the stories?" And they gave her $6 as a total.
She got 6 $1 bills each person, or some of the people gave her a $1 bill.
Not everybody gave.
No. There was 35, 40 people on the
bus
tour, but 6 people gave her $1, and she quit letting them come to the and it was a real it was an authentic Hatfield visiting place that no doubt they enjoyed going to, but they had paid so much for their ticket for the tourism that they just didn't want to give no extra, and so she come out with nothing. So, and I think that's what was going to happen to John Vance. I think John Vance seen that he was just going to be pushed to the side. It's his property. The graveyard's on his property, and they're going to take over and bring the public up there to view something, but there's what's in it for him? Nothing. So when Ron McCoy seen this, that John Vance wasn't going to allow
he wasn't on board with everything.
Access to his property, him and Bo McCoy files a lawsuit. I'm going to catch up here on my PowerPoint where the McCoys claim victory to the feud. Later on, you'll hear the McCoys claim victory to the lawsuit, but they didn't have victory.
It still remains closed except for one day a year.
For Memorial Day,
right.
But the problem is we never had a problem visiting nobody. Even the general public never had a problem pulling up on the hill and going to visiting until Ron McCoy decided that he was going to file the suit, and then it made it worse. And the judge ruled. Now Ron and Bo McCoy told the newspaper that they won. I don't know how they won, because it went from having access to the cemetery whenever the McCoys wanted year round,
anytime,
to going on Memorial Day each year. And so basically 2002 lawsuit just made it worse. It created a problem that nobody had until that. The McCoy Cemetery is located just off Highway 319 on the Hardy side of Blackberry Mountain. Now, Blackberry Mountain years ago was renamed Hatfield and McCoy Mountain. But on one side of Blackberry Mountain, or Hatfield McCoy Mountain, is the Preacher Ance Hatfield's cabin.
At the foot of
the foot of the hill. That was my great-great-grandfather, Preacher Ance Hatfield's daughter, Nancy, married my great-grandfather, Asa McCoy. Right. And I'm half Hatfield and McCoy. So the cabin is on one side of the mountain. On the other side is Randall McCoy's home place, where the well is. A lot of people goes there for tourism.
Right, it's right down from the monument, John Vance, Exactly. John Vance's property where the 6 are buried.
You know, at one time that was an entire piece of property. That was a 300 acre,
300 acres that they owned.
That Randall and Sarah owned. And when they sold it, after they burnt the cabin down, the Hatfields, they moved to Pikeville, and they sold the property all in one piece. So the graveyard went with it. One headline read, Hatfields and McCoys went before a judge. And that's incorrect. Right. It was a Vance, not a Hatfield. It was 2 McCoys and a Vance went before the judge. The cemetery's in the backyard of John Vance's yard, of course, and like we said, it is a privacy issue. And the graves are on private property. Had the graves meant so much to the McCoys, why did they sell them?
Yeah.
Why did they sell them? You'll hear later on in here where Ron McCoy says that's cherished property. It's cherished property. He's been to it twice. He came to it once to run a reconnaissance on it, and he filed a lawsuit, lost the lawsuit, come back to bring his daughter, and said that's the last time he was ever on the property. You know, it's real simple. If you want somebody's property,
buy it.
Buy it. Exactly.
He's got it for sale.
And that's the thing. Had John Vance had the monument up there, and he wouldn't let nobody visit at no time of the year or do anything. He didn't want to sell the property. Then maybe that's your last resort. There was no problem here. He let anybody want to come visit. He's also got the property for sale. If you want somebody's property, you don't try to take it from them. You buy it from them. He put a price on it. Yeah. He put a price on it, and you know, for what it cost them to file the lawsuit,
right,
to hire the attorneys, to travel back and forth from Waycross, Georgia, and Durham, North Carolina, all the fees that they paid.
Yeah.
They could have bought this property along with the Pike County Tourism. Yeah. They could have bought that property. They could have turned that house there into a snack shack, into a gift shop.
Yeah.
And by now, all these years later, that place would be paid for and would be into the black. It would be making money for them right now.
Right.
But if you want someone's property, buy it. Don't try to take it. If the deed has John Vance's name on it, and the cemetery's on that deed, then John Vance owns it.
Yeah.
McCoy's attorney said in court, McCoys have a right to visit these graves. The thing is, the McCoys never had a problem visiting those graves in all the years since I was a young boy, and especially since 1976 when the big monument was placed there. And that's when the official handshaking and feud ended. The official end to the Hatfield-McCoy feud was 1976 between Jim McCoy, which was the oldest living McCoy at the time, and Devil Ance's only living son, Willis Hatfield. And they shook hands, called a truce, dedicated the big monument on the graveyard, and there was never a problem visiting that graveyard.
Exactly.
Until they started talking about running a tourism bus and making it public.
Yep.
John Vance posted no trespassing signs on his property.
He's got that at the bottom of the hill there.
And you can't blame him. It's his property.
Yeah, he owns it.
We agree with Judge Lowe's ruling. John Vance's property is his to do it with as he wants. And again, they fixed it so the McCoys could visit Memorial Day
once a year. Yeah, once a year. Instead of we could go before, like you stated before, 365 days. You could go anytime. Now we're limited to 1 day.
Larry Webster, the attorney of John Vance's, said that he feels that McCoy's is trying to capitalize on the property. And that's nothing but fact. That's the truth. That's all you can say.
Not all McCoys.
If you had a place you could visit whenever you wanted, and all of a sudden you try to take control over it to charge and make money, then that's what you want to do. And exactly, Sheila, good point. And that's why we're making this video, because that's two McCoys. Ron McCoy
and Bo
from North Carolina and Bo from Georgia. Neither one of them born and raised in Pike County, Kentucky, or anywhere around there. And it wasn't just Sheila and I. There's a lot of McCoys, thousands of McCoys in West Virginia and Kentucky that feel the same way we did when they filed this suit, that it was nonsense and a publicity stunt more than anything else. As local McCoys, we were embarrassed, just as other McCoys had been. Had the cemetery meant so much, why didn't they just buy it? Ron said somebody accused him in the newspaper of a publicity stunt. And Ron told the newspaper up here, he said, I'd have to be a marketing genius to get this kind of publicity. It's in China, Russia, Japan, it's everywhere. Everybody's talking. It's worldwide news. Hatfields and McCoys. And that's why it was worldwide, because it's Hatfields and McCoys. Chicago Tribune. Hatfields and McCoys trade shots in courts. Again, it's not Hatfields and McCoys. It was two McCoys against the Vance.
Yep.
There's a chart down here, and like I said, she's closed up on everything. Look at them dates.
You can read everything really well if you'll zoom in.
Yeah. And it says, see the charts if you want to know if this was a publicity stunt. Look down here at the timeline. and look at everything from the peace treaty that had already been taken care of in 1976, and look at all of it and come to your own conclusion.
Oh, you be the judge.
You know, John Vance, anybody that knows John Vance, he's a lot like Fred McCoy. Some people like it, some people don't, but John Vance is straightforward.
Very outspoken.
Don't ask John Vance what he thinks unless you want to know what he thinks, because he'll tell you. Me, I prefer people like that than I'll do the kind that just tells you everything to get a photograph and a story and all that. So that's just the difference in people.
No, not everybody's the same.
You're not going to push him around. He'd give you shirt off his back, but you're not going to take it.
Exactly.
We'll tell you in a minute of a story where even Ron McCoy, that's Ron McCoy, that's Rio Hatfield, that's Bo McCoy. Mm-hmm. And we'll tell you another story after a while as we come to it here of even Ron McCoy making the same statement about John Vance being a nice guy.
Yeah.
Once again, all we're trying to do is clear up some history on it. Seems if you don't do it now, it's only going to get worse the longer it goes.
Things are going to get twisted even more.
Ron, again, was 35 years old. He says in his book he was 35 years old before he realized. By the way, Ron wrote a book. He's not a marketing genius. There was no reason for nothing else. He just wanted access to that cemetery that we already had. But yet he decided to write a Hatfield McCoy book. It says he was 35 years old when he figured out that he was related. But in the first chapter of his book, it's titled History. Where do you get the history for your family if you didn't even know it until you was 35? You get it from other books. And you hope that you get the books that's correct in history. Ron didn't. Ron copied books that had copied other books. Rather than people doing their research, and that's how these stories over the years have gotten so out of hand with the Hatfields and McCoys, and even the miniseries.
And the documents and stuff, there's stuff out there that you can do research and find for yourself.
Our aim is to correct some of the stories before they go any further, or at least before we pass away. At least with these videos, the truth is out there if anyone wants to find it. If you don't, you know, there's other videos to go watch and other people to listen to. What Sheila and I are doing is leaving our legacy as far as saying, hey, don't take our word for it. Research it, look at it. And that's each one of these boards that we do. We're going to have videos on top of videos that we're going around the museum and doing and corrections. And if we don't prove our point, then fine. Believe the stories of the past. But at least have an open mind and look at our research.
That's right.
You know, there's some people out there that wants to write a book. They want to be an author, especially of a Hatfield McCoy book. So what's the best way to do it? Put a Hatfield McCoy title on it, Hatfield McCoy feud. You read somebody else's book. I remember reading Altina Waller. Altina Waller wrote that the McCoys were from Kentucky, Hatfields from West Virginia, Hatfields were Confederate, McCoys were Union. That's the rate of it. Devil Anse was a captain in the Confederate Army and so forth. And, you know, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Randall McCoy was from Kentucky. Devil Anse Hatfield was from West Virginia. Both of them was Confederate.
Right.
Randall McCoy's brother, Asa Harmon, the first one killed in the feud, was from Kentucky. He's a Union soldier. Preacher Anse Hatfield, Devil Anse's cousin and my great-great-grandfather, was a Union soldier. So brother against brother, Randall and his brother Asa was on two different sides.
Right.
So somebody asked Altina, said, how did you get your history wrong here? She said, well, I copied off of Otis Rice. He's got a PhD. I thought he knew what he wrote. Well, you shouldn't copy off of nobody. If you're an author, do your own research. Don't blame Otis Rice because he was wrong. Blame yourself for not doing your own research and finding out. So again, that's one of our things. Ron McCoy said the property was too important to remain closed. And again, we say buy it. The property was never closed until Ron and Bo tried to take control of John Vance's property. These men could have taken the money they spent and wasted on a lawsuit and bought it. In the headline read, while McCoys claimed victory, the cemetery was still not open to the public. How could Ron and Bo McCoy claim victory over this lawsuit other than a publicity stunt?
Yeah.
For a publicity stunt, they got a victory. They done good because they got thousands and hundreds of thousands of views in newspapers and things like that. How could Ron and Bo tell the newspaper they won when all they did was make the lawsuit made everything worse?
Yes, it made it completely worse. Like we stated earlier, you could go visit anytime you wanted. Now you have to go one time a year on Memorial Day, and that's all you're allowed.
Ron thought he was going to tell the great-grandson of Jim Vance, crazy Jim Vance, what he was going to do with his property. John Vance handled it in a different way. He took him to court, and he won.
That's right.
And he should have won.
I agree, yeah.
Again, as the McCoys have talked through the years, we were embarrassed over this. Ron said in his book that he expected some fallout when he filed the suit over the cemetery, but he said the cemetery was cherished ground and it was just something the family had to have. Well, the family should have never sold it. It was cherished ground. Couldn't give up on it. If the lawsuit wasn't about publicity, why did Ron write a book? Why did Ron write in his book? For the first time in 100 years, the Hatfields and the McCoys were back in court. Now, Ron put that in his book. For the first time in 100 years, the Hatfields and the McCoys were back in court. Again, where do you get the Hatfields at? You had two McCoys and a Vance in court, not a Hatfield. A Vance is not a Hatfield. But of course, you wouldn't have received as much publicity if you'd said McCoys and Vances are in court. I wouldn't have done it. Hatfields and McCoys gets the attention. Had John Vance said no access to the property, it'd been a different story, but he gave everybody access. Ron said his position was that he had to take action because no one locally would do so. Ron McCoy said that he had to take action and file a lawsuit on that cemetery because no one locally would do so. Well, no one locally had a problem. We didn't even know there was a problem. We could go visit the cemetery anytime we wanted, and most anybody else could. It wasn't until Ron McCoy was going to team up with the Pike County Tourism, and they were going to put that on their visitors list to pull that bus up on that hill and unload those people with, I don't know how much they charge. You can go to Pike County Tourism and look at their website, and it'll tell you how much they charge. I've heard anything from $30 to $50. That could be incorrect, but it's easy enough to check out.
Yeah.
No one locally had a problem. And all I can say there is poor Ron must feel really special that we had to count on somebody from North Carolina and Georgia to come in there and file a suit. Thousands of McCoys there from West Virginia and Kentucky, but we couldn't do that. We had to wait on somebody from North Carolina to come in there and file a suit on our behalf. That's hogwash. Ron says in his book, John Vance was nice and cordial when he and two other men, and he names the two men, visited the graves the first time. When he went there the first time, John Vance come out and greeted them and was nice to everybody. That's when Ron had mentioned about running a bus and making it a public site. John said no. After the lawsuit in 2003 was over and the McCoys could only visit during Memorial Day, Ron says he decided to take his daughter, Rachel, to the site. He wanted to show her.
Right.
And he said he knew that the sensors was going to go off
as soon as he went up the hill, that John would know that they were there. And then when they got out of the car, John came out of the house and supposedly smiled and asked who they were, where they were from, and he replied, Ron, Mr. Vance.
He didn't recognize Ron as being the one that had filed the suit, and Ron said he come out real nice and said, "Where are you folks from?" And Ron told him who he was and said John made a face and went back in his house. Ron said he stayed for a little while, him and his daughter, they left. They'd never been back. Now that's a real important, cherished property that you file a suit against a man, make him go to court, and you finally get access if you want it. You could have went anytime you wanted to, but he should have been there on Memorial Day every year for the last 20 years if it was so important to him. Never went back. Does that not
sound strange?
Yeah.
Sounds strange.
Well, it doesn't sound strange except that you wanted it for commercial business. You wanted to make money, and when you couldn't get that proves the point of what they wanted with the property.
Yeah, their real motive.
It was the last time I set foot on the site. That's what Ron writes in his book. Neither of these guys, Ron, Bo, or Rio Hatfield, were born and raised in Pike County, Kentucky, or Mingo County, West Virginia. Rio's from, I think he grew up in Huntington, West Virginia. Lives in Waynesboro, Virginia. And the next video we cover will be on the peace treaty and the publicity stunt there, but we'll discuss that later on.
That's another video to come.
That's another video. Devil Ants would actually be proud of all three of them, the two McCoys and Rio, for their narcissist way of wanting attention and their personality traits. And on this video here, that's all we're going to cover on the lawsuit itself. Now, again, we've got a couple more videos coming up with these three gentlemen still yet, or at least two of them. And they're going to get more interesting as we go along and more controversial. Again, if you want to close in on this, a lot more material there to read and give you a better understanding of it.
Hope we cleared some things up. Hope you understood what we were trying to say.
Well, I think you understand that when they say Hatfields and McCoys, it wasn't Hatfields and McCoys in the lawsuit. It was McCoys and Vance.
Right.
And I hope you understand that it wasn't the McCoys. It was two McCoys, one from Georgia, one from North Carolina. And it wasn't the McCoys locally. It wasn't... we never had a problem with that cemetery. So anyway, we hope we haven't drug it out too long.
Right.
Hope you understand it. You can go to Hatfield's McCoy's Museum.com, or you can go to fredmccoy.com. The museum is located in Liberty, Kentucky.
Right.
And till next time.
Bye.